Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Today I'm going to give you the introduction to logistics and supply chain management. So, what do you mean by logistics management and supply chain management? I'm showing you some diagrams, some uh, pictures, and we will talk on those. We will discuss on those. Okay. See, a supply chain management flow is like this. The supply chain management flow is like this. Okay. So, first one is this is the first stage of supply chain management, that is procurement. And for procurement, you have a supplier. You have a supplier. Number two, after you supply the raw material, you will send this raw material to the manufacturing or factory. So the flow is like this. So first there are a number of components or people or functions which are carried out in supply chain management. First, there will be shareholders. There will be shareholders. They will be investing money in the company. They will be investing money in the business. They will be investing money in in business model. Okay, with this given capital, what they have, with this given capital, what the company has, they have various functions to be carried out. Number one being the procurement of raw material from the suppliers. Raw material is procured from the suppliers. Now, if you want to procure the raw material from suppliers, you have to know the suppliers. You should know the vendors. You should know everything about who are the players who are going to supply raw material to us. Okay, and there is something called as this. When I'm talking about supply chain management, it is integration of all this: one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, so on and so forth. You can't restrict when I'm talking about logistics and supply chain management, you can't restrict yourself to only one part of it. It is combination of everything. It's a combination of various components, I will call it, of the various components which go into logistics and supply chain management. Logistics and supply chain management. Okay, it is a continuous process. It's like a cycle. It's like a cycle. Cycle means it is a continuous dynamic process. Okay, so for there is a consumer here, so you have to find out what are the needs and what are the wants of the consumer, and based upon his needs and wants, you have to produce. After you produce, you have to go supply it through logistics to the end customer, and before you supply it, you keep it in the warehouse. Okay, all this comes into picture. All this comes into picture. So every stage there is a value addition which is taking place, which is a every stage there is a value addition. For example, here also, when I'm talking about a customer is not at all interested now in buying the old product. He wants the new product, and which has a value addition to it. So it is when I'm talking about logistics and supply chain management, it's nothing but there are various functions. One is procurement of raw material, procurement of components, identifying the suppliers who can supply the right kind of raw material at the right place, at the right price, of the right quality, of the right quantity, and many other aspects. So suppliers is just not supplying. It's not just supplying. Supplier means it is supplying the right kind of raw material at the right price, at the right place, at the right quality, of the right quantity, to the right person. And this can be a means to improve the quality of the finished product. You can manufacture the quality of the product with a good quality at a reduced price or reasonable price, which is competitive in the market. Okay, so when I'm talking about logistics and supply chain management, one part is logistics and one part is supply chain management. Means when I'm talking about logistics, it doesn't necessarily mean that logistics which are used for manufacture of procuring the raw material. or it doesn't necessarily mean that logistics is used only for supplying the goods, that is the finished goods to the customer. Number one. Number two. Number three, it doesn't necessarily mean that only it are goods. Even when I'm talking about service industry, when it is a service industry, like for example engineers are there. So what are the logistics which are used in case of engineers who are supposed to go on site and check the capital goods or the machinery? So logistics which are involved into it. So every stage, these are every stage there is a component or a function which has to be carried out. So it's a aggregate, it's a blend of all these activities which we totally put together, aggregately put together, and we define it as a logistics and supply chain management. So so many components are involved. For example, manufacturing, suppliers of raw material, components, procurement of raw material and finish raw material and components, and even finished goods, even shareholders who are forming a part of a supply chain. Because if you are in requirement of funds for expanding your product, or you want to establish warehouses, and the where each warehouse costs you some 100 crores, and you want to set up warehouses in different parts of the country, probably require huge amount of money. So it can be shareholders, it can be bankers, it can be bankers, it can be people who are lending money, like financial institutions. All are put together, are called as, are part of supply chain management flow. Okay. Now look at this particular PPT. Okay. Hope this is visible to you. So when I'm talking about supply chain management, there are various components which are integrated. They are integrated. They are integrated. When these components are or parts are integrated, then only they are forming a supply efficient supply chain management. For example, you look here, field warehouse stocking points. Field warehouse stocking points means, if this is the manufacturing plant, this is the manufacturing plant, you have to you have to stock the goods here over this place, and you should know what is the capacity of this. You should know the capacity of this. Then only adequate number of goods are manufactured and supplied over this place and stored here. And another one is your transportation cost, inventory warehousing. So you should know what is the cost involved in storing the goods, in the finished goods or raw material in inventory. What is the cost involved in transportation? Okay, so many things are there. And here, when I'm talking about stock warehousing, you should know the demand of the product, because you produce the goods here, and you should know the exact demand of this particular product in the market. Because if you manufacture some 1 lakh units here and store some 2 lakh units over this place, but the demand is of 5 lakhs, means there is no coherence, there is no connection, coordination between production, there is no between warehouse and the demand. So there should be a proper coordination between the production manager, the warehouse manager, and the marketing manager or the economist who is predicting the demand for this particular product. And this also comes into picture, where this also comes, the supply of raw material also comes into picture, because he is going to supply over this place, and these are going to be used in the manufacturing of the finished product. So once you are procuring huge amount of raw material, this raw material should be converted here into finished goods and supplied over this place, and from there it should be going into the market to sell the product. So they are all integrated. They are integrated, and there is something called as SAP which comes into picture. Okay, SAP which comes into picture. So information and data is very important. Information and data is very important. For example, when I am talking about information and data, how much stock is there over this place? For example, the stock over this place is 50,000, in which is stored in the warehouse, and the demand is 60,000. Means what? This is the data used for decision making. Now, how many to manufacture and how many to be transported and stored over this place? So they are all integrated. They are all integrated. Various components of manufacturing, raw material purchasing, warehousing, transportation, logistics, supply chain management, suppliers, customers, service people. Everybody have to get integrated in this particular supply chain management. Now, integration of supply chain management. Integration of supply chain management. First one is customer, and you have to service. Now, purchasing of raw material. You have to purchase raw material. Number one. Number two, you have to supply this raw material. What you have purchased as a purchase manager, whosoever is purchasing the raw material, should purchase the raw material in keeping in view the requirement of the production person, or requirement of manufacturing units to be manufactured. So there should be a coordination between these two, and they should be integrated. They should be integrated. There should be a coherency between these two elements. Okay. Now, after you manufacture, now this manufacturing of number of units again depends upon the sales people or the market demand, the market demand. So the sales people and other elements will help you out for forecasting the demand of this particular product, and according to you have to manufacture. Now, after you manufacture, you have to coordinate with the warehouse and supply the goods to the warehouse where these goods are stored for certain period of time, and there is a space, and there is an element of cost involved. So there should be a coordination between one here and here also, and there should be a coordination between warehouse and transportation, because transport after you warehouse here, the finished goods are transferred to the customer, transported to the customer. So warehouse people should coordinate the transport and say that go, this is the number of elements which are required, or units which are required by the customer, so please transport immediately to the customer. So there should be element of integration between all this. 1 2 3 4 5, I'm showing you different diagrams to make you conversant with the basic elements of logistics and integration of logistics and supply chain management. Number one. Number two, please remember, very important is that there is a cost here also. Number one, when I am purchasing raw material, there are so many costs involved in purchasing the raw material. Number two, here also there is a cost. There is a cost when you are manufacturing goods. There is a cost of production. So cost number one, cost number two. When you are warehousing, there is a cost. This is cost number three. When you are transporting the goods to the end customer, there is a cost, which is cost number four. And when you are, see, once you have supplied the goods to customer, he will ask for service. So there is a cost, another cost, which is called as service cost, and this is five. So every stage there is a addition which is taking place to the cost. There is a value addition which is taking place, to the cost. So you are enhancing the value to the product, and this is supplied to the customer. So he expects a better quality goods at a reduced price. So when there is a value addition, then he expects that the value addition is in line with the quality of the product and other aspects. Now with this, another example, another diagram I'm going to show you, just pay attention. So previously what was happening in the years, when I'm talking about 1960s, 1960s, how it used to take place as far as production and supply chain management and logistics were concerned. They were not integrated. They were not integrated in 1960s. They were acting as individual departments. They were acting as individual departments or individual functions. They were not co-integrated. So first was somebody who was taking care of the demand for the product. So for example, a company which is into, for example, laptops, for example, Lenovo or Samsung or Dell company, and other companies. Okay, these people, this particular company, for the year, for a particular month or a particular year, so on and so forth. Okay, depending upon the short term or a long term or medium term outlook, they used to find out the demand for this particular product for a particular period of time. For example, what is the demand? What is the likely demand in the month of what is the likely demand in the month of January? For example, February. For example, March. For example, July or September, so on and so forth. Okay, so When I'm talking about demand forecasting, it has to. This is the first stage. This is the fundamental foundation. This is the foundation on which everything is dependent. Foundation on which everything. So, for example, today we are in the month of September. September, we got 30 days or 31 days. So there is a department which used to forecast what is the total demand of laptops. So based upon this, so this was the first function, and then based upon the number of units what they have forecasted, they used to purchase the raw material. They used to purchase the raw material like various components which go into the manufacturing of laptops. So this was two, one. This was two. So once you are purchasing the raw material, you should be very careful. There used to be a purchase manager. There is a purchase manager or a purchase department. There is a purchase manager or a purchase department. Now, what do you mean by scientific purchase management? Scientific purchase management is nothing but scientific purchase management is nothing but it is defined as the purchase of right kind of raw material, of right quality, of right quantity, of at right time, at the right price, and supply to the right person. This was the elements which were going into scientific management, scientific purchase management. So when I'm talking about sourcing purchasing, here we talk about purchasing of raw material of the right quality, of the right quantity, at a right rate, at a right price, from the right person, and supply to the to the concerned person at the right time. So all these were there. One more thing which comes into picture here is vendor rating, and vendor management. Now this again comes. It's a very big chapter in itself, very big concept in itself. We have to do vendor rating also. We have to do vendor management. We have to do. We have to understand the vendor from various angles, from from various elements. For example, when I'm talking about vendor rating, you have to rate the vendors who are supplying the raw material to you or the components to you. For example, Tata Motors is there, and Tata Motors, one of the components which is going into the manufacturing is, for example, tires. Now, who are the suppliers of tires to Tata Motors? There are so many players like MRF, Apollo Tires, or Dunlop Tires, or JK Tires, and TVS, Sri Chakra. So there are one, two, three, four, five, and many other vendors who are ready to supply. So here you have to do rating in the sense that you have to prepare a questionnaire or a checklist. Who is supplying at the right time? Who is supplying at the right quality? Who is supplying of the right quantity? What is the manufacturing capacity of all these people? Whether is they're supplying in time or not? What is the right? What is the price at which they are supplying? What is the lead time? How many times they are able to supply? How many times they were not able to supply the goods in time? What has happened when they did not supply the right quality goods to our production, when they were not able to supply the goods to us at the right time? What has happened to our production? Probably our production has got hampered, and the end customer was dissatisfied, was not happy with the kind of goods which are supplied, and the time at which they are supplied, or the price at which they have supplied. So when I'm talking about vendor rating, so you have to rate the vendor and then find out who is the right person whom you have to keep intact, with whom you have to undergo a long term relationship or agreement. So when I'm talking about sourcing and purchasing, it is vendor rating, vendor management. You have to see that whether the vendor is happy with you or not. You can't stay. You can't state that only, oh, you should be happy. Even the vendor should be also happy. Means, see, because of you, the vendor is going to exist. It will survive. If you don't survive, your vendor is not going to survive, because there is a exchange relationship. Because vendor is supplying to you, and you are going to in turn convert the raw material into finished goods which are supplied by the vendor, and then you will pay money to the vendor for the amount of raw material which you supplied. So vendor can survive because of your survival. So you should take care of your vendor. You can't state that okay, I will work in isolation with him. No, they both of you should go hand in hand. Both of should be cooperating each other. For example, I will tell you, uh, some vendor, some for example, Tata Motors can give some 1,000 crores to set up a new factory so that they can supply the raw material to Tata Motors at the nearest point. So 1,000 crores or 100 crores is invested by Tata Motors in MRF. So you can think like this. Or another way is backward integration. Another way is backward integration. Now, what do you mean by backward integration? Okay, instead of purchasing the raw material from my vendors, what I will do is I will set up my own factory from where I can the raw material is going to be manufactured and then they are supplied to Tata Motors. So you can think about buy or manufacture. We call it as buy or manufacture strategy. Buy or manufacture. Okay, so you have to be very careful. You have to be very elaborate in your thinking. You need to be very comprehensive in your ideology, whether how to have a long term relationship with the vendors, at what cost, whether you can go for purchasing the raw material on your own from the third party, or you want to go for backward integration, thereby you want to manufacture, etc., etc. So this is number two stage. This is number one. This is number two. So they in 1960s they were fragmented. Means they were working in isolation or individual entities. For example, demand forecasting is done by one department. Purchasing and outsourcing, sourcing of raw material is done by another department. Though there were no coherence. Okay. Now next one is material planning. Material planning. Next one is production planning. Okay, we will be talking about material planning and requirement of material requirement planning comprehensively in inventory management. Next one is manufacturing inventory. So when I'm talking about manufacturing inventory, again these are are different. They are aligned to each other. They can't work in isolation. They have to work hand in hand because these people will tell you how many units are demanded by the market, and you have to manufacture this many number of units plus some 5% or minus 5% of the demand. Because if you are not able to meet the demand of the customer is dejected, is not satisfied, and then he will move to another seller. Will buy from another customer or from another seller. So, and you are going to lose your customer. So, demand forecasting and manufacturing inventory means how much goods have to be manufactured. What going should go hand in hand. Okay, next one is warehousing. Now, after you manufacture, for example, Tata Motors is there here, and they got the market all over the world. For example, in India, I'm talking about these points. These points, these are the customers who are separated from the factory, who are available in the market at a distant place. So for them, what you have to do, you have to have a warehouse from where you can supply, you can manufacture and store over this place in the warehouses, and from the warehouses the goods are transported like this. So here we are talking about transportation problems. For example, in decision science or in statistics and related topics, you have something called as transportation problem. For example, in transportation problem, we used to adopt WAM method, Vogel's approximation method, least cost method, or modified method. So here you have to do, when I'm talking about warehousing and transportation, you have to do like this: from where the how much goods are to be manufactured from a particular unit, and what is the total cost of transportation. If you remember well, in the last semester there was a there was a transportation problems also, numerical problems which were solved, and we found out that if this is the manufacturing unit and this is the market, and there is a demand for this product D1, D2, D3, D4 like this. So this is the transportation cost from here, and this is the number of units manufactured here, so on and so forth. So one is demand, one is demand, one is production. So how many units will be supplied? What is the demand for of M1 market? What is the demand for M2 market? What is the demand from M3 market? What is the demand production from factory 1? What is the demand from production from factory 2, factory 3? Who is going to supply? So there were elements like this, and we used to solve the problem by using three methods. And popularly all these three methods. These methods were uh, these methods were, if you remember, there were least cost method, number one. Number two was a northwest corner method. Number three was Vogel's approximation method. Number four was finding out the optimum transportation cost by using modified method. Okay, so when I am talking about transportation, there is an element of transportation of the finished goods to warehouse, and even the transportation of raw material to the factory or storeroom. We used to employ all this statistical tool to find out the optimal cost of transporting the raw material or finished goods. So you have to do that part also. So in the 1960s, there is a separate department of transportation. Okay, there was a separate department of transportation. Here you can talk about transportation. Next one is material handling. Now, for example, there are various ways of material handling equipments. So there is an element of cost here also. For example, material handling of the finished goods, or material handling of the raw material, or material handling of the components. So this is again a separate department. Packaging was another function. Next was goods inventory, means where the finished goods are to be stored, how many units of finished goods to be stored, what is the inventory turnover period, and inventory velocity at which the goods have been sold once they are manufactured. Next one is distribution planning. For example, Hindustan Unilever Limited, Unilever Limited, and this is India. So they got so many customers in India like this. So you have to do a proper distribution planning. For example, they got carry forward agents in India like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now these are the customers. These are the customers who are present all over India. So this guy will supply to this guy. This guy is going to supply to this market. This guy is going to supply to this market. This guy is going to supply this market. This guy is going to supply this market, and this guy is going to supply this particular area. So the way you are going to sell and distribute the products also should is forming a part of your supply chain management. Is also forming a part of your supply chain management. Next one is order processing. So next one is order processing. Now, what do you mean by order processing? I will give you a good example. For example, okay, um, I was working. There is a company in Ahmedabad, in Gujarat, in India. There is a company in Ahmedabad, in Gujarat, in India. Okay, and this particular company was manufacturing electronic weighing scales, electronic weighing scales. Okay, and they have customers across India. Across India, they got customers like in South India, in North India, in East India, and in West India. That is in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, and Andhra Pradesh, and Bombay, Gujarat, and allied areas, Assam, and these were the major areas. South India and North India and West India were the place where they were able to sell the goods in of a high quantum. Okay, high quality, high quantity, or in volumes. So electronic weighing scales, they can measure from five, for example, to 1 gram milligram like gold to, for example, 100 kilos to 500 kilos to 100,000, 10,000 tons like this. They used to manufacture products of which can measure or weigh this much quantity. Now, how many units they are going to manufacture of 0 grams, or which can weight 1 milligram, or 1,100 kilos? How many units of electronic weighing scales are manufactured which can weigh 500 kilos? So these people used to give order to this company. For example, this a supply a buyer in Andhra Pradesh, for example, A1 used to tell that, sir, I want 100 kilos machine, 10 units, 5 kilos machine of 20 units, and 10 grams weighing machine of 30 units. So now they got an order. They have to purchase the raw material depending upon the require what they got the order from the various customers and place a order to the vendor, and here we come out talk about purchasing. So these two go hand in hand. These two go hand in hand. So order processing. Once you get an order from the customer, you register that, you note that, and accordingly you plan the production of it. Next one is transportation. Already I talked about it, and customer service. And now customer service. Now, what do you mean by customer service? Once this particular machine what you are supplying, if there is any problem here in North India or South India, now there is a factory in Ahmedabad, and there is Andhra Pradesh here, and some 100 customers are there who have purchased goods, and they are having some problem with with this machine. So there should be some engineers who should go to this place, who are called as people who are going to take care of the customers and their service problems and going to rectify them. So so you have to spend a lot of money here also. So you have to use you should be very logical and prudent in controlling the cost. For example, when this guy is going to Andhra Pradesh, he can't go to one customer and come back. He will be stationed here for 20 days or 30 days, and he will come rectify all the problems of the people who purchase the finished goods from us, who are stationed in Andhra Pradesh in India, and after solving their problem, he is going to come back. So he will not go for one visit only. He is going to, for one visit, in one visit, he is going to 100 customers, solving their problems and collecting money. So that's the way they were previously working. So they should, previously what was happening in 1960s, they were working in isolation. All these departments were working in isolation. One, two, three, four. No, you can't work in isolation. Rather, you should work in integration, and then only it is going to be fruitful for you and for your organization. Then only it is going to be fruitful for you and for your organization. That's very important. Now, in 1980s, what has happened? Now, in 1980s, they got consolidated. All these activities got consolidated, but they got consolidated in the form of like this, in the form of 1, 2, and 3, where all this, some of the activities got consolidated into materials management, some were got consolidated into warehousing, where the finished goods are manufactured and stored, and one department was there, packaging. So they got consolidation, but this consolidation was not the final answer to the solution to the problem. So there were materials management, warehousing, material handling, packaging, and physical distribution of the goods. Now all these were in 1990s got integrated into logistics, and this was not the end solution, because logistics was again refurbished or re-innovated into supply chain management, because there are chains like this. There are chains like this, and every chain there is a cost and there is a value addition. For example, raw material to manufacturing to warehouse, so to transportation to warehouse to the end customer. So supply chain, there is a chain here, 1, 2, 3, 4 chains. They are linking. These chains are linking to every function which are involved in the supply chain management. Okay, so that's the way the evolution of supply chain management took place over a period of time. This is the way the supply chain management took place, got evolution, or came into picture. Hope you have understood it. So again, another diagram I am giving you. So there is supplier who is supplying the raw material here. There is a supplier who is supplying the raw material. So first and foremost, again, one more point I will tell you. In this particular manufacturing unit, there is a person called as procurement manager or managers, procurement manager or managers. So these people will not immediately give order to the supplier. What they will do, they will go and inspect the supplier who is supplying who is willing to supply the goods. They will visit their factory. They will evaluate the capacity, the total capacity of this particular plant, the quality of the product, how much quantity they can manufacture, what is the rate at which they are manufacturing, what is the raw material, quality of the raw material what they have used, So they are going to visit and then they are going to place the order. They will not blindly give order. Okay, just supply the goods. So there is a lot of rehearsal which has to take place. For example, Tata Motors is there and MRF is there. So before they finalize or get into agreement, that contract, that this guy is going to supply goods to this guy, there will be a formal visit or official visit of Tata Motors purchase managers or personnel over this place and look at their various aspects and before concluding or going into an agreement. I will tell you one more example, with that you will understand it. So please don't be under the impression it's a very small activity. It's a very lengthy, laborious, time involving process. For example, I will tell you, for example, India is there, and there are so many people who can supply crude oil to India, because India doesn't have reserves as far as crude oil is concerned. So they get from Venezuela, purchases from Iran and other countries, USA. No, and these are going to supply to this guy for a longer period of time, for example, 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. Like this. So there is a formal long-term agreement between the two countries if they are entering into a bilateral agreement. It's a long term of supply of raw material from here to here, and Reliance will purchase from India, and they will refine it, and from refinery we are going to get petrol, diesel, kerosene, and so many other LPG and other aspects. So please remember, it's not for one day or 2 days. The agreement which is entered between the raw material, between the manufacturer and the raw material supplier, is for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, and they will have a clause also. The clause will be hike, price hike. If there is a hike, if there is a hike in the transportation or price, then there is a clause in that agreement that uh, there is a suitable increase in the price of the raw material from time to time. Like for example, 10% per annum will be the increase in the raw material price. Another example of supply chain management or logistics. Supply chain management is, so they are integrated. If you look carefully, they are integrated. So logistics, customers. For example, if the customer is, we have to supply the raw material, finished goods to this guy. Okay, number one. Number two, we have to do even the performance. The customer is, whether he is happy with the product or not, whether he is happy with the customers, is happy with the side of service which is provided by the service manager or not. We have to do performance management and information sharing. Already I told about it. And he has to, this way he will give a feedback, and based upon the feedback we will try to incorporate the feedback which is given and come out with new products, new designs, and so many other things. And based upon this requirement we will produce, and the production what we are doing depends upon the number of units we are going to manufacture, depends upon the customer's need and demand from the product, from the market which is emanating, and we procure the raw material and finished goods. All this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements put together is called as supply chain management. And please remember, there is a word chain. All these are linked together. They are all linked together. So look here, another diagram. So hope I am giving a explanation to what understanding you should have about supply chain management. So first you have, number one is you have to plan. Means now when I am talking about plan, it is demand forecasting. Demand forecasting. You understand the demand of the product, demand, the needs of the customer, the market potential, purchase of raw material, and other things. Then source the raw material, right quality of raw material, of the right quality, quantity, right price, right person, right place. And then with the raw material what you have got, you store in the storehouse. From the storehouse we are going to supply to the production center or manufacturing center, and the manufacturing center will manufacture the goods, and it will be transported and kept over the warehouses, and then it is delivered, and then delivered to the end customer, and then it will return back, or there is a return like this. So what are the elements which are, if you look here, supplier is involved, manufacturer is involved, distributor is involved, retailer is involved, and customer is involved. So supplier is the person who is supplying the raw material. Supplier is the person who is supplying the um, supplier is the person who is supplying the labor. Supplier is the person who is supplying the components. Supplier is the person who is supplying the transportation like trucks, etc., etc. And the manufacturer is the factory one, factory two, factory three, and after it is manufactured, we have got distributors D1, D2, D3, D4, D5 like this, and then it is supplied to the retailers R1, R2, R3, R4, and R5, and then there are n number of customers like C1, C2, C3, so on and so forth. Now, what is logistics management? So the reverse logistics and supply chain community. So it is a reverse flow. From here it will flow, from here it will flow, and then it will flow back also. This is the funniest part and the most important part of logistics management. It's not like it is going forward; it can come backward also, because see, here the end user is there. End user will give a feedback how the product is, and based upon that, this feedback will not be given directly by this guy to the manufacturer. He will give it to the retailer, and retailer will give it to the wholesaler, and wholesaler will give it to the distributor, and distributor will give to the manufacturer that the customer is not happy with the quality of the product and wanted the product. So there is a flow back and forward. So this also you can incorporate in your understanding. Okay, I will give you some examples. For example, uh, when I'm talking about here, when I'm talking about supplier, uh, supplier, I will give a small example. You can understand it. Really, very very important. You can write in your examination this example also. Okay. So what is this example? The example is like this. The example goes like this. See, we are in the year 2000, and in the year 2000, Olympics Olympic games were conducted in China. ओलंपिक गेम्स वर कंडक्टेड इन चाइना चाइना में ओलंपिक गेम्स को कंडक्ट किया था ईयर 2000 में and see it's not a small fancy function, it's a very big activity, it's a very big mega activity or a program or a schedule, and this particular Olympic games lasted for almost lasted for 2 months from 2000 February for example to 2000 May, and there were so many players and athletes who participated in this particular Olympics, which was conducted in China, and there were almost every player or sportsman from each country on the globe. From every country, sportsmen participated in this competed in this particular mega event called as Olympics. Now, there were thousands of people who wanted to witness or watch this spectacular event, wanted to watch this spectacular, magnificent, enthralling, captivating mega event. So, how many players, how many people are now we have counted? There are sports people who wanted to participate from each part of the country, world, every country. There were politicians who wanted to witness. There were people who wanted to witness from this particular game, watch this game from all over the world, There were so many people who were they were building the infrastructure. They were building the infrastructure required to conduct this activity, which had almost thousand different games like cycling, gymnasium, swimming, 100 meters running, 1,000 meters running, and thousands of games were there. So, and there were these people who were there, like sports people, people who wanted to watch. They had to stay in hotels because they don't build that country. So, China had to build the structure. They had to build the infrastructure to accommodate and connect this particular mega event. So for this, so I'm giving you the background how to calculate the demand of this particular product. So if you want to if you want to put in place proper infrastructure for smooth conduction of this mega event, which is spanning over a period of 2 months, then you should have proper infrastructure in place, and your infrastructure should be world class infrastructure. You should have a world class infrastructure. You should have a world class infrastructure to accommodate and for the smooth conduction of this mega event. So the primary requirement was cement and steel. The primary requirement for this building of this capacity of infrastructure was iron ore and steel. So they had to modernize all these things. They had to modernize all these things, and the demand for cement and steel was there. So, but as far as steel is concerned, they did not have iron ore mines. They did not have iron ore mines in their country. So, which are the countries which are into the manufacturing of iron ore? One is India, and to my knowledge, it is Indonesia and South Africa, if I'm correct, and Australia. They have rich iron ore mines, and this they have rich deposits, and they had to these Chinese people gave order for iron ore, which is the basic raw material for manufacturing steel. They gave order to India, Indonesia, Australia, and many other countries. Okay, South Africa are African countries where there is a rich deposit of iron ore. Where there is a rich deposit of iron ore. So India got a huge demand for the manufacturing of iron ore, and some of the iron ore mines are in Karnataka and in probably in Jharkhand and all that stuff. Jharkhand and all that stuff. So this is the way they got a big order. The Indian government got a big order, and they in turn gave this order to the Indian iron ore mines. Iron ore mines. So here in India, for example, in Karnataka, there are so many iron ore where iron ore is extracted. Even Goa also has a rich deposit of iron ore. Okay, I forgot to mention. So they have this iron ore has to be extracted from the earth. Number one. Number two, they have to after they move the iron ore or extract the iron ore from the earth, it has to be brought to the upper part. They have to be brought to the mine or upper part of the mine. From there, it has to be transported to the nearest railway station, and then from there it has to be transported to nearest port, which is for example Mumbai. From Mumbai, it has to go to China. So please remember how beautiful this example you can take it for understanding the supply chain management. So first you have to extract from the ore, then bring the iron ore on the top of the hill, then it has to be transported to the nearest railway station. From the nearest railway station, it has to be brought to the Mumbai port, any port which has a capacity to which has a water port or airport, and then from Bombay port or any port, water port. Okay, this is a port means where you can understand JMP. You all know from where the iron ore is deposited or kept in the vessel, which is called a ship, and from that vessel will carry the iron ore to the Chinese, and from there it will be going again to the factory. So this is the big chain which is taking place. This is a big chain which is taking place. Another example I will give you. So supply chain management doesn't involve only one or two activities. It carries more than 30-40 activities, and every activity there is a cost and value addition, and this cost and value addition goes hand in hand. So once the cost is increasing, there is value addition which is increasing. The quality has to be in line with the cost incurred. Another example I will give you. So hope you are now getting a good information about logistics management. Another example is, for example, Tata Motors, and Tata Motors is giving a order to, sorry, China is giving big order to Tata Motors. For example, 1 lakh trucks, 1 lakh trucks. So now they have to execute this order. I told you about order processing. I told you about order processing. Order processing. So once they have an order, you have to process the order, or complete the order, execute the order, or fulfill the order. So to fulfill that, they have to be very, very meticulous in their planning. So number one is how many labor are required. Number two, how much of raw material is required? What are the different requirements of raw material, different requirements of raw material, different requirements of raw material and different quantities of different rates? Who are the vendors who can supply? How many labors are required? How many contract labors are required? How much capacity, how much of coal gas is required? How many manufacturing hours are required? How many factory hours are required? How much storage is required for for storing the raw material? So many things comes into picture. How many new recruitment you have to do in, for example, how many finance managers are required? How many cost managers are required? How many production managers are required? How many factories are going to be required? No, each factory is going to manufacture how many units? And then after they manufacture, they have to. There are two important things I will tell you. One is we call it as wagons. Okay, I will just remove all these annotations and then I will tell you. So here wagons are required. Wagons and vessels are required. In WAGONS and vessels. Now vessels. Now what do you mean by wagons? Now assuming that we don't have a water port or a natural port in Pune, because Tata Motors is in Pune, assuming it is in Pune and it is there in Pune, so they are going to manufacture 1 lakh units. Now, after you manufacture 1 lakh units, you have to transport these goods to the end customer who is in China. Now, can you transport it by on a truck or a lorry? No, it's not possible because it's a truck which has to be transported. And how many trucks you have to transport? 1 lakh trucks you have to manufacture. You have to transport after you have manufactured it. So you require two things, three things I will call it. One is 36-wheeler trucks, 36-wheeler trucks. Then you require wagons, and then you require vessels. Okay. So another 5 minutes I will take, 10 minutes I will take, and then I will stop because I will have to complete this one. So what are these three things? One is your 36-wheeler big truck, now you have number two wagons, and number three you have something like vessels. And in between wagons and vessels, there is something called as ferrying by small ships. And then before that we have something called as warehouse. So all one, two, three, four, five things has come into picture. Now, what is the importance of this? What is the importance of this? What is the importance of this? So, the importance of this will be explained. Just pay attention and understand it, because if you are working in this kind of a environment, you should have element of knowledge about it. So, number one is, so once you manufacture trucks, for example, they manufacture 100 trucks. So all these trucks, for example, are kept on that 36-wheeler big vehicle, and then they are transported to Bombay airport from Pune. Bombay water port are BNPT Jawaharlal Nehru. There is a big vessel. In this vessel, it is going to be loaded. But what is going to happen? Number one is, first, here after the truck is manufactured, these trucks are kept in 36-wheeler, or it can be physically they can be carried to the nearest railway station, which is Pune railway station. Though, so Pune railway station, there are wagons. So what is the difference between a wagon and a train? Wagon is nothing but goods are transported. Goods are transported. I think you have seen wagons transported. And other one is your passenger vehicle, passenger trains. So wagon is used when the goods are transported. And in one wagon, in one particular train, there will be some 56 wagons. I will show you in the next class the picture of wagons. So all these 100 vehicles or 56 vehicles are kept in wagon, and they are transported. They are loaded on wagon in Pune, and they are transported to Bombay. From the Bombay railway station, it will be carried to Bombay seaport or port, and Then there is a big vessel means ship. This vessel has a capacity of 72,000 tons or 1 lakh tons. They are loaded here. Before they are loaded here, they can't directly go in water, or this will not come on the land surface. There is small ship which is called as small ferry ship. Small ferry ship. So they will be loaded. These lorries are loaded in these small ferry ships, and then these ferry ships will go from the port surface to the interior water where the big vessel is stored. Is there waiting for the goods to be loaded, and then they will be loaded. How many it can accommodate? 72,000 tons of trucks. So please remember how many processes are involved, what are the different functions are involved, and there is a huge element of cost in transportation itself. And you have to do even insurance also, because if you want to do even insurance of at every stage. So please remember this supply chain involves even insurance management. Hope you have understood. And if you have any doubts, you can WhatsApp me, WhatsApp, and I will get back to you. And with this, I will stop. And please wait for a few minutes, few seconds, few seconds.